Welcome to The Light Conversations, a series about well-being and creativity. I'm your host, Giada del Drago. For this series, I'm reaching out to healers and creatives around the world to find out what they're experiencing at this time and what they're doing as part of their personal practice to incorporate well-being or creativity into daily life. Today, I'm speaking with Uta Verena. Uta graduated from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing in 2007 and is now a practicing healer. She's also a certified yoga teacher and mother of a teenage girl and boy. Uta's journey into healing was activated by the unexpected death of her father, which initiated her spiritual path when she was 15 years old. She realized that in Western society, there were no satisfying answers to the most essential questions of life and death. Trying to find those answers led her to start traveling at the tender age of 17, finding and growing her love of exploring different cultures, expanding her horizon and her worldview. At 22, she started her career as a flight attendant for Swiss Air, making her calling her profession, studying life and humans through the international stage of her work and the many different encounters all over the globe. Being a free spirit, Uta couldn't live within the constraints of a materialistic and conservative society anymore and moved to Bali with her two young children. Uta is deeply dedicated to the spiritual path and the uncovering of the essential truth of life. She uses the medium of writing to share her acquired wisdom and the tools of energy healing work to transform people's lives and support them in their journey of inner exploration. Since the transition of her mother, a big part of her healing practice is focused on conscious death and dying. Her latest creation, still in the making, is called Dignified Endings, which teaches people how to approach death from an energy-conscious perspective, leaning on the scaffolding of Barbara Brennan's system, using tools from European paganism, and drawing from the experience of creating a safe and peaceful atmosphere for both her grandmother and later her mother to die in dignity. Uta also does distance healing, and I'm really excited to talk with her today about the many aspects of healing work that she has studied and does. So, hello Uta, thanks for being here whilst I do the introduction this way today. That was probably quite surreal to hear the story about you read to you.
It was.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
it becomes quite matter of fact, doesn't it? It's like, suddenly, there's the story. It's out there. And what a beautiful journey you've been on as a healer. So how are you today and where in the world are you? You look gorgeous. It looks beautiful there.
Well, thank you, Giada. First of all, for this introduction. Yes, it is indeed a strange and unusual thing to hear your own story told by somebody else. Very nice. Sorry, that was my dog chasing a chicken behind us when I laughed out loud. It's like classic. I am currently sitting in my garden in Bali, where I came back to when the world locked down. I decided that I would want to go back home to the home of my heart, which is here. And so now I'm stuck here and I'm working from here. Yes.
Oh, what a lovely place to be stuck. So what's your daily routine like at the moment?
Oh, well, it just recently changed because I had my children here with me, but through a complicated new reality, we sent them back to Switzerland in the plane as unaccompanied minors. And so that took up a lot of attention and everything. Finally, they arrived back a week ago. So last week I was in the transition of coming back into solo life, just me and the dogs. And yeah, so what my routine at the moment looks like, I don't know, it's gonna start tomorrow again. I usually get up quite early, like early, like 5:30. And then either I engage in my yoga and meditation practice or I go surfing. It's either one of these. So by the time it's like 8, 9 o'clock, I'm already done with that part that deeply nourishes me, and I'm here for the world.
Is that the main thing that that drew you over there to Bali is the surf. I mean, it's like one of the best places in the world to surf, isn't it? But you have to be
It
quite
is.
good to surf there too. Those currents are strong.
They are, and I got smashed many times since I started learning really late, and I'm still only on an intermediate level. But yeah, it's deeply nurturing. I
Mm.
find to be in the ocean and outside, and we couldn't, like, in the lockdown, the beaches were closed here as well. Most beaches still are, but there are some possibilities now. So yeah, I'm looking forward.
Just hearing you talk about surfing in Bali is like activating a really happy place in my energy field. I found my true power surfing in Bali. I think I've been doing so much yoga that I was able to get up on that surfboard and properly surf in Bali.
Yay.
I hear you talk about that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, will I ever be able to surf again? Motherhood changes
You will.
everything.
It does. It does.
What a, yeah, it must be quite interesting now that you're transitioning into time to yourself again. Like how,
Mhm.
do you have a sort of plan of how you're going to really make the most of that? Because obviously as a mother, it's very precious to have time to yourself again.
Yes, it is. Well, I think, as a single mother, or in any situation that is where there is a separation in the family, I think both parents have to get used to longer and longer times and longer periods of being without their kids. And at first, that's quite hard. The first few times I had to separate, I was crying my eyes out, and I was a mess. But you do practice, and I realized, like, this is also really important to learn to let go, and to learn to let them take decisions and have time with their father, and yeah, as I'm getting better, I have also I have found ways. You kind of develop tools on how to navigate this transition and the tough moments. And then once you're through it, there is a lot of light. It's really nice to have that time and to be really able to focus on the work and the parts of me that want to be of service to people and to the world. And especially now, I feel any kind of healers or light workers or alternative therapists, etc., etc. All of the people that are usually a little bit, smiled at, like with a grin, looked at. We have a lot. We have a lot of work to do at the moment, because it's a time where people really, many people are in need of some emotional and spiritual support. I feel so. Here I am. Hmm.
Absolutely. Ready. Awesome. So let's dive into that a bit. Let's talk about your work as a healer and your journey of diving into healing and what inspired you to go down that path and the journey you've taken since deciding to go down that path.
Okay, so I'm quite radical by nature, and I ended my flight attendant career at once when I saw that this Barbara Brennan School of Healing moved to Europe. And I stopped basically that job and that career and went into that, transitioned into this world of energy and energy healing. And it is indeed a magical world. And I will always be happy that I chose this path. Now, in the first moment, it was just a natural next step in my spiritual development and on my spiritual path. And then only much later, I really started to understand, like, how much you can support and help others when you have really looked into the deepest core of yourself, and pulled out all of the ugly stuff, and looked at everything that runs inside of us that we are usually completely unaware of in normal life. So once you're done with that training, and once you kind of establish that life, um, with all this awareness, that is when people start coming, and you start to encounter situations where you feel like you know what to do, and how to help out, and yeah. So I'm using these tools on a daily basis.
Amazing. Okay, let's backtrack a bit because now I'm like, okay, so there must have been a moment where you had this career and then you're like, healing, I'm going to do that. Was there a particular event that actually showed you that you had this ability, or did you meet somebody who was doing that? Like, what showed you the possibility of being a healer?
All right. So, nice question. Well, how that happened in the first place was by an encounter that was a coincidence, or could have been a coincidence. I missed the flight, and then I was on another flight where I wasn't supposed to be on. And next to me sat a woman that had just come from a week of training in Miami, and we talked the whole night in that flight. And she was telling me the most amazing things that she experienced in this healing training. And yeah, and it's just, I was so inspired, and I wanted to have this magic in my life. So that was really the deciding factor. And then when I saw that the school opened, as I said, I was just pretty radical, way too radical in retrospect. I mean, I didn't look at the financial side of things at all, and that wasn't really smart. But that was just like, okay, this part is done. I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore. Let's embrace the new. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And so you said that on your journey as a healer, the first step is pretty much going inside and looking at all your stuff. And
Right.
how do you do that? Are there rituals, ceremonies, and what kind of things do you do?
Well, what I'm talking about mainly is like the training itself. It is a four-year training. It's a proper study, and in these four
Degree,
years,
like a degree,
it's
basically.
a proper degree. Yes, really, and I must emphasize on that because there is still a lot of a superstition around the word healer. And often when I meet people and I tell them that I do energy healing work, I get this look like, okay, so I get all kinds of funny responses sometimes. People wanting a reading immediately, like, oh, can you do me a reading? Like, what's going on in my energy? Like, how am I doing? They're asking me, and I'm like, I don't know. You should be knowing how you're doing. Or people think like, oh, you have this gift and you should be like offering that, and you should never ever charge a cent, or oh, that's all bollocks. There is all these different ideas. And in the end of the day, I just did a training. I didn't have any special abilities. I had once in my life before seen an aura of somebody by chance, and that was all. And so I entered as a complete newbie into this world, and anybody can do that. It's not about always getting a gift from God, but you can really learn it. One part of the training, for example, is high sense perception. You learn how to read energy in different ways, and you become more sensitive, and that is what those 4 years are about. So when you become more sensitive, you also see a lot of the ugly stuff, and in order for that to be balanced, you need to develop your heart at the same time. So that cannot happen in a couple of weekends. That takes time and dedication, and also a little bit of fearlessness to really look at the things which are not so nice.
Right. Well, it's actually, as you're speaking, I'm just imagining how the world could be such a different place if everybody learned the skills of like
I know.
reading people's energy, and like, so that's beyond emotional intelligence. That's full full energy intelligence. But like, if what's coming to me is like in conflict resolution, people need to learn this.
Oh yeah, conflict resolution is a big one. Yes. So what we, for example, learned is that are the different defense mechanisms that people have, and where they're rooted. Now it's too much to go into this in detail, but we learn how to respond to which defense because we know where the root is. Is the root perhaps a childbirth, or is it because of the way that somebody grew up? And there is a little bit of a code in everything, so it gets much easier to be compassionate with other people, because you see a little bit where they come from, and why they sometimes react in the way they do. Yes.
Really fascinating. So after you do that preliminary work of sort of honing your skills, how do you actually work with somebody as a healer?
Well, that depends what the question is that the person comes with, or the what we call the presenting complaint. It could be anything, from anxiety to sleeplessness to being overwhelmed of a certain situation, to being grieving, or to having some kind of condition on the body, acute or chronic. And I would start by laying the person down, and after we have a conversation, and I would just, check their energy field, and go work up from the feet, their body, and then just with the map that we learned and my high sense perception, I would start perceiving what is happening in the energy field, and any kind of problems always show in the energy field in a certain way. Sometimes it's symbolic, sometimes you can really like see that there is an inflammation, you would see it red, or you see that there is a massive block, and seeing that, you can work with it, and people always feel lighter, or different, or a little bit clearer depending on what the situation is.
I imagine now, like life must have changed for you so drastically when you develop these skills, because I imagine every human interaction is
It's different.
slightly affected by your ability to see what's going on, right? Like, did you feel like you would never be able to interact with people in the same way again?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because it's not that I'm like, it's not like I'm having my antennas open all the time. In order to be really deeply seeing, I really need to put the person in front of me and concentrate and tune in. In some cases, it's obvious, even on the outside, but usually, yeah, people keep a lot inside of them, and you really have to dig a little bit deeper. But having said that, when it comes to places, that's very different. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I find that really interesting.
Yes. What do you mean specifically? The
So,
energy, the energy of a place,
yeah, the energy of a place, exactly,
or
in a
a
city or in a
house, a
countryside or
home.
in a house,
Yeah.
exactly. You,
Energy
you,
healing on a home.
yeah, absolutely. I do it everywhere. You can't stop yourself anymore, really.
Tell me a bit more about that, about a place or a building or a country or a city. The energy of,
um,
how would you?
Well, it happens sometimes that people that come to me, they have, like, they sleep bad or so, and they have issues at home, and sometimes when I can't get further with them, when I kind of feel, okay, this is all I can do, then I might check their homes or their bed, and then you can sometimes feel like that there is distorted energy, and it's tough. It's often underneath. You have to look a bit deeper. In the homes, it's sometimes harder. It's more obvious, like in the outside, for example. um, but yeah, there is like certain corners, in a city that are kind of scary, and then there is places in nature that they just don't feel right. And when I feel anything like that, when I pick this up, then I sit down and I feel deeper, and usually I kind of go into a deep meditation, and whatever is there, it shows, and it's interesting. So
So amazing. So you're living super connected to the world of
yeah.
energy and spirit. So can you tell me a bit about Barbara Brennan? Have done
Yes,
my
what would
research,
you like to
but
know?
I've done my research, I'd like to say,
All
but
right, right.
people listening, they may be like, who's Barbara Brennan and why does Uta want to study with her?
Right. Yes, that's actually is quite important, because Barbara Brennan, she used to work for NASA at the time when she was young. She's a scientist, and at the very same time, she's very clairvoyant. Yeah, and so she just connected these two worlds of science and energy healing, and I really love that, because I'm not so much into new agey stuff, and it's all light and it's all love. I mean, it is, but there is much more shadow, and there's a lot of darkness that we cannot deny. If we deny it, then we're doing what's called spiritual bypassing, and we really need to face the stuff that scares us. And so she did it. She did connect the two worlds of science, where the way I understand science, and I respect it greatly, but I always feel like there is always a limit to it, because it doesn't hold into account the fact that beyond the physical there is more. And Barbara, she saw that, and so she made a science out of that. That's why it's called Brennan healing science, because with her amazing clairvoyance, she could literally, like, you know, tune into the body and see like details of a chakra that explains so much. So, and she, through that, gave us the map to work on that energetic levels, with people, and it's great.
Amazing. Did you find that when you went to study, were many of the people there attending to study, were they clairvoyant as well?
Some were. There were some people that had already done healing work, and they wanted to give it like a proper structure. And then there was there was all kinds of people, like everywhere. Like we had like farmers and people working at the office, and vets and students, and like from the whole range of things that you can just imagine. People came to study it. I think you follow a calling when you do something like that. It's not a decision you make with your mind. You see it, you feel it, you want to do it, and then you make it happen.
So one thing that jumped out at me, you mentioned a term, spiritual bypassing. Do you want to maybe clarify what that is for anyone being like, what's that?
Spiritual bypassing. Well, spiritual bypassing occurs. It's like a way of having some form of cognitive dissonance. It's like you start believing in a certain spiritual reality, and then you make this your temple, so to speak, and then you kind of, you forget about all the other things because you focus on that temple, and you consider yourself the priest or the priestess of that temple. And so your reality kind of shifts, and you already, and I think that's a danger for all of us, and I myself included, that we find new realities, we find a new truth, we discover something about ourselves that is amazing, and it's spiritual, and then we become dogmatic about it, and we do things that don't really follow the actual truth anymore, because we've already put ourselves a filter in place again. And as a healing practitioner or a yoga person of any kind, I think it's our biggest responsibility to keep on checking in with ourselves, as well as having supervision to make sure that we don't fall into any narrative that isn't dedicated entirely to the truth.
And is that a part of the study? Is there supervision or
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have supervision throughout the training, and then we like every healer or practitioner that I find that takes that serious will keep on having supervision, because there will always be cases where, you know, stuff gets triggered, where you start mixing up your personal things with that of the client, and that is dangerous, because you could re-wound somebody when actually they came to you for help, and you want to be able to help them while being completely neutral, yet completely feeling them in an empathic way.
Cool. That's really good that you've got that. And I like what you said, that basically everyone there is following a calling. So that must be quite like high energy to be amongst kindred spirits who are all following a calling in life rather than just doing their job, kind of thing. So do you have a community of healers, or do you feel like being in Bali is nice for that as well? There's so many healers out there.
Well, it's definitely a special place here, and very, very spiritual, and with a very high energy, which is I found that really nurturing in this moment. What was the other question? I forgot.
Actually, I was asking you more about a community of healing, but now I'm thinking
Yeah.
about actually how it's quite an honor that you're here talking with me right now, because there was something else that you were considering to do that was pretty amazing and kind of crazy. What was
It
it?
was a walking over the fire because it's the solstice, and you know, to kind of shed all the old, burn all the stuff that's no longer needed, and kind of I saw it as kind of a purgatory, but I consider this also kind of a purgatory, so it's fine.
What this? So, what do you mean by this being a purgatory?
Well, let's say since it's a high energy day today with the solstice, we're kind of stepping into new territory, and you interviewing me is as much new territory as me walking over fire. So,
Oh, awesome! Great. Yeah, it may. That's interesting because you're not the first person to say that. I think a lot of healers are not necessarily comfortable with a spotlight on them, but it's also
yeah,
it's like I feel like, as you said, the world needs this work now. So the world needs to know
absolutely.
about people doing this work and about the
Yes,
many different forms of energy and healing work there are as well. The options. People need to know about the options. And as
right.
you say, one chance encounter, one synchronicity can spark a whole, what Oprah calls the aha moments, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
um, so I know you also do distance healing. Can you talk a bit about that and how that works? How you would
Sure,
do distance healing with someone?
sure. So, so when I do a distance healing, and you, Chana, are for example in England, and I, Uta, am here in Bali, and you asked me for a healing, then what we would do is we would arrange for a time, and then on that time, I would tune into you, and I would literally like bring your energy field in front of me. So I put you in front of me on the healing table as if you were there, and I start working on you as if you were there, starting on the feet, going up your body, and and it works. And at first, when you hear that, it's like, this is not possible. I thought this is not possible. What are they talking about? Bloody crazy hippies, you know? But no, it really works. And we then learned about Rupert Sheldrake, and he came up with that theory of the energy and how everything is connected in one big energy field. And and so if I am here and you're there and I tune into your energy field, I can literally work on your energy field, and you will be over there and you will feel it. You will probably go to sleep in the first place if you're not already asleep, or you will wake up and you will be like, wow, something has shifted. What could it be? And then we would connect later on Skype or by phone, and we would talk about it. Yes.
I love that you mentioned Rupert Sheldrake and his theory of morphic resonance.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, Jill Peirce, is also on one of the podcast episodes,
Oh,
and
really?
I had
Nice.
lunch with him when I was studying
Mm.
with her, and I wondered if he was reading everyone's minds at the table. He actually told me that I should do a podcast. Can you believe it? And I'm doing it now. I need
There
to
you
get
go.
him
Here's
on.
your answer.
Yeah, he was like, podcasts are really cool things. Yeah, do you do a podcast? I
Oh,
actually told him
nice.
I was already doing one at the time. It was arts and culture, but maybe he inspired this partly. I'll send this one over to him, okay? Uh,
Yes, please.
um, yes, so thanks for explaining how you do distance healing. And um, it's something that is really helpful at this time of kind of where people can't travel,
Absolutely.
and so you're able to work with people all around the world,
Yes.
and as you said, they present a problem, they present an issue, and then you can kind of specifically tune into the energy body
Yes.
and kind of, and that's with the skills that you've developed in the course,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
This ability to see somebody's energy body. And
Yes.
do you need like a lot of information about someone, or can you literally just visualize their energy?
It both is possible, but of course it's helpful. You know, I don't want to like waste my time trying to find something. If somebody already can tell me like, yeah, my problem is here or there, that makes it easier for me. Then I don't have to, you know, like go through the jungle with a knife and find my way. But I know exactly what to focus on to begin with, so that is easier. Also, what makes my work a lot easier is when people have already done a fair bit of work. The more a person has already worked on themselves in regards of meditation or yoga or any kind of alternative work, you know, a person that's already gone to a TCM practitioner or a shiatsu or a craniosacral practitioner, anyone who works with the body and with the psyche, or you know, with themselves in in those ways, has already cleared some of the layers that I would otherwise have to first, you know, get through, work myself through, and that is the one frustrating part about my work. It's often some people they refuse to do the work, and they have this aspirin kind of thinking, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but there's like, okay, here is a healer, I go there and she fixes me, but it doesn't work like that. It requires a fair bit of self-responsibility, particularly if there is a chronic issue. If there is a chronic issue, you really need to like look deeper at all kinds of things, and that includes habits and beliefs, and that is uncomfortable territory. So someone, in order to really get to a successful new way of life, has to be willing to challenge their own habits and their habitual behavior, and that is where it usually gets difficult for some people.
So it's sort of one foot in the realm of kind of psychology and the other of body psychology and energy psychology. I can imagine, as you described that sometimes people run away and disappear and then come back again when they're ready.
Yes,
When stuff
yes.
comes up, they're like, I have to get on with my daily life again, and to process whatever it is you're looking at. What a journey. And I mean, I know that you are a very grounded person, able to deal with whatever kind of comes up. So is that a skill that you've always had, or was that something you've developed through motherhood and study of human?
Let's say it got channeled in a much better way. I mean, we all have the personalities that we have, right, to some extent, and I think I'm quite a fiery person in certain situations, and I'd say in the past, when I was younger and I didn't have those tools and I didn't have children, I was probably a little bit unpredictable in certain situations. And now I know where to, you know, where to use this energy in a constructive and helpful way most of the time.
Yes. What about parenting as a healer? Does it affect the way you parent your children? Can you do energy work on them?
Well, I mean, I can, and I've certainly done it. Usually we're required to not like work on our family, because there is this emotional situation that I mean, the emotional bond that you have with people. So you cannot stay neutral, and particularly if you come across something really bad in your own child, like this already, this disqualifies you. You can't work. But yeah, most certainly when my kids were sick or they had cuts or things like that, I would do like, you know, a little bit of work on them. But they know, I mean, they know the real, they know everything about me. So, you know, there are certain things that I wouldn't necessarily want the world to know. And my kids, they hold that power over me that they can always throw that out.
Right. So if anyone listening to this, what is one thing that you could recommend people could try, sort of experiment with in the realm of energy healing? Like one
You mean with their children or with themselves?
with themselves, or let's say with themselves as individuals, because that's easier. Not everyone's got kids. So like, yeah, what is one exercise or one small step that you can recommend people to do to start connecting with their own understanding of energy?
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is, and that is possible for anyone, to just to try and be conscious of every single action you do. From, you know, putting the butter on your bread, to making the coffee, to sweeping the floor, caressing your dog, whatever it is, every single action we do should be worth our attention, our presence. And I mean, that is the mastery. And I like, this is my own practice, like every day, to be conscious and not be doing here something while being with my head somewhere completely different. So that the mind, the heart, and the soul and the hands are really all together. And then everything becomes a little healing, and a little sacred action.
The present of presence, right? The gift
Yes.
in the present.
Present of presence,
Yes,
exactly.
I like it. That's a good one. So I'm going to get through the rest of my day with that seed
Right.
planted. I will be noticing. I told you I baked a cake right before the podcast. I'm not a cake baking type of person before having children. And I wasn't exactly present whilst doing that. So I will try to enjoy it in presence. So what do you really want people to know about you and the work that you do that we haven't discussed already?
What I really want to, well, what I'd really like to give out as a message to everyone is that, you know, it requires some braveness, some boldness to approach a healer. But I think you don't need to, like, you know, be in a really bad situation where you have no other option anymore. It's, healing work is really helpful for anyone in any situation, and it helps to get through any situation in life with more understanding, and with a deeper sense of the purpose of everything that happens to us or to our family. And that, I find, makes it easier. You know, we don't go into blame and shame. Oh my God, this is so bad because he did this or she did that. I mean, we all fall into this occasionally, but you know, if we learn to be more conscious of ourselves, and we work with somebody that has practiced that skill, it makes life so much more so much more colorful, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to have that kind of positive influence, like there's some quote out there about how we become the result of the people that we're kind of engaging with, you know, like our energy, our personalities. And so, yeah, being able to talk to a healer, as well as a therapist or counselor, giving you tools to be the best you, is definitely a great thing. And more people need to know that this exists, and that it's not a totally like fictitious creation, that energy is a very real, tangible thing that, you know, with your training, you've learned how to guide people to understand that better. And it's a really, really cool thing that you do. So what are I'm going to ask you what your plans and your dreams are, because we are nearing the end of our time together, unfortunately. Tell me about your plans and dreams. What are you looking for?
My plans and dreams, on a professional level, I am in the middle of creating some programs. I want to do more group work. I definitely want to open the space for people to speak about death and dying, because that is like, oh my God, no, I don't want to talk about this. This scares me. And then I shut it off, and I find that's such an important discussion to be had. And I like to facilitate a space where everybody can feel safe to ask questions, to listen to other people's stories, you know, without having the feeling that they attract death because they're talking about it. And
right, a lot of people have that fear.
Absolutely. And it's a pity, because I feel like the more we are able to confront death as what it is, another transition, the more we can enjoy the present moment and really make the most of our life. Yeah, and so these kind of programs and these kind of group works, I'm focusing on also. You know, like I like circle work. I like to sit with people and discuss the stuff that bothers them, like the things that you feel like you have no one to talk to, and you do want to share it with people. And I do, you know, like Alcoholics Anonymous, or however that's called. They have that, for example. They go there with their alcohol problem. And there is all kinds of groups for everyone, but normal people, like ordinary people, yeah, sometimes they have nowhere to go to. And I feel like we all deserve to be able to share what's happening and to hear other people share. And we can all give each other healing just by witnessing without judging. And that is something that I find beautiful, essential, and necessary. And I want to develop that.
Wonderful. So is that something you're planning to do with the wonders of technology? Now that everyone's gone online, you can create your circles.
That's right. That's right. I like them in person, but definitely online is
And I can
possible.
join from wherever I am in the world,
Yeah,
right?
you can.
Could join you. They don't have to fly across the world to sit in the circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if people want to find out more about anything that you're organizing, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website that is called Medicine for Rebels, and it is I don't know if we can put that somewhere with a 4, and rebels like the bell, like the female version of the rebel. And yeah, they're on there. There is like a contact form. I have an email address there on as well. And yeah, people can get in touch, and then we can also talk via WhatsApp, or if anybody happens to be in Bali, then they can come to my house.
Or they can join you on Zoom. I think that I would like to try the circle. If you want to get a circle together, I love the idea of the sharing circle. I did a homeopathy course during the lockdown, and we do this kind of online circle, and talk about the things we were studying. But that space, that sharing space, is really, really precious. So
absolutely,
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And you know, I did sort of think, oh, I know you're an expert on the topics of death and transitions and holding space. And is there anything you really want people to know about that, or that work? You said you don't have to feel like if you talk about it, you're gonna.
I think that's a whole other discussion, because it's really big, and if I just throw out the stuff that I really think, I fear that someone is going to get shocked and is going to turn around and run away. I think the only thing I can say is that I think we're dying a little death, like almost every day. Like we go to bed and we wake up the next day and it's a new day. Or you know, our children grow up and they go from crawling to walking, or the situations around us changes. So every little change really is an opportunity to learn, to let go and embrace what has been, and bring a proper closure. And dying is basically the same thing, just in a much more concentrated and intense way.
Oh, that's a very poetic and beautiful way of putting it. And I'm thinking of the tarot deck, and how the card of death is actually not symbolic of death or dying. It's transition, which is a big word.
Transition and transformation. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the main word for you. That it's healing and transformation, or transition.
Yes.
Even. Yeah.
Yes, transition, exactly.
Yeah. So is there anything you want to say about transition before we go?
I mean, just to take that fear away, really. Like when we go through the year, the seasons, there, every single time we go to a different season, we go through a transition, and we have those 4 seasons, particularly in the north and in the southern hemisphere, where there is proper winter and proper summer and proper autumn and proper spring. Those are really like the seasons that we also go through in our human journey. They're identical, and that I find so beautiful, how nature and the human they are run by exactly the same characteristics. It's just a matter of how can we just accept it and go with the flow, and give up control.
And you also told me another time something that's really interesting for you is transitions in life, not just end of life transitions, but you said to me once, and it's actually really stayed with me, about how like young people don't have enough ceremony for transition,
That's
like
right.
coming of age transitions. Like, is that something you want to do more of, or is that just something you want to see more of, the celebrating of
That
these
is
transitions?
that is definitely something I want to do and see more of. I think when it comes to doing, I would probably be able to hold the space for girls, when they start their period and they are in this transition of going from girl to woman. That I find like super important and beautiful. Most of us didn't really have a nice explanation from our moms when it came to the questions that really matter in teenage girls' life. And for boys, it's the same thing. I always, when I read a lot about the indigenous cultures, and I talked with many people from indigenous cultures, and what I found is that they're so much more connected and tuned in, that often the boys were going on some kind of a vision quest, some rite of passage from boyhood to manhood. And the fact that this is missing in our entire culture and society, I think is a big part of the problem. Now again, that is a whole different discussion, but
Totally,
looking at
totally.
looking at politicians and at many men running important key positions in the world, I am always thinking how different their decision making would be had they gone through this rite of passage, where they maybe would have had to confront their fears, or were really like taken by the elder men of their tribe, and be introduced into manhood. So
Yeah,
yes.
rites of passage. So that's really something that is going to be in your offerings, that's coming out as well. I can see it. I can totally see
For
you
the
leading circles of teenage girls to
girls, yes.
power, as
Yeah,
well
that's
as
very
the other
much in my
work
heart.
you do, the healing and the distance healing, and um, the end of physical life healing, the dignified endings. But I can really see you being a super role model for young women at that point, because it's a really insecure time
It
in life
is.
for girls. They need role models to
Yes,
help
I
them
agree.
understand and step into their power. And oh yeah, I'm excited. I want to follow up with you and hear how things are. So we have reached pretty much the end. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off today?
No, absolutely not. This was a pleasure to be
Absolutely.
interviewed, and an honor.
And it's really nice to see you. It's like super cinematic. We've gone from this like lush tropical landscape to like spotlight on your face with all dark all around you. I love it. Yeah, I'm so glad. It's been a really beautiful, enlightening conversation, and I'm really excited to share this. And just as a little person has just appeared in the door, just good
All
timing
right,
as we're
perfect
about to end.
timing.
Thank you so much, Uta, and it's been
Thank
wonderful to
you.
speak to you. And I look forward to sending this over when it's live.
Thank you so much,
Take care,
Shara.
superstar.
Bye bye. Thank you.